Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by AFGRI, Monsanto, Nedbank, Senbes, Engine, Grain SA, and John Deere.
Hello, welcome to Nation in Conversation. I am Mpumelelo Mkabela. We are broadcasting live from Nampo Harvest Day in Waterville. Today we have a group of students from diverse backgrounds coming from all over the country to hear for themselves what would be best for them if they want to pursue careers in the agricultural industry. And equally diverse is our panel, very competent panel, very high level, and I'm hoping that you will make this enriching for the students that are here. On my left here, I've got Yanni de Villiers, who is the CEO of Grain South Africa. Next to him is Omri van Zyl, who is the CEO of Agri South Africa. And then we have Prudence Motsio, who is AFGRI HR Manager, Human Resources Manager. And then I've got Flint Menkes, who is the financial analyst at this big conglomerate called Senbes. It's a huge agricultural company. You are welcome, and you will have an opportunity to participate and ask questions and seek for clarification. By the end of this session, I honestly hope that you would have enjoyed it and you'd go back home with something to chew on. Before we go to the students and give them an opportunity, I would like to put up a very controversial question to start the discussion. If you mention agriculture in South Africa today, the first picture that comes into mind is an old boere, grey-haired, khaki-clad guy who's in a farm somewhere far from the cities. The image is that of an aging industry represented by this old boere, khaki-clad guy. Is that the reality or is that a perception? And if it is a reality, how can we change it? Or if it is indeed a perception, how can we change that perception? I'll start with you here.
Yeah, Mpumelelo, I think if we start and looking, that is the truth, but I think it has been moving on, and especially as the technology in agriculture have changed. Yeah. You know, if we look at the equipment around here, you can see there's a lot of computerized equipments and satellite technology, and I think as the technology has advanced, the ages are changing. You know, when we do surveys to see, you know, for instance, if we have our Congress, how many people are, you know, younger than 25 and so forth, there's definitely a movement. And I think agriculture has changed from, let's say, the old traditional lifestyle thing to a more, you know, scientific managing technology and people thing. Yeah. So, and I think that has actually made the migration happening. And I would believe today that there's definitely some movement in the positive direction to make it younger and more appealing. And it is a lot challenging. And, you know, agriculture takes on challenges. Yeah. The aging thing is something that is a challenge to agriculture. And normally a boer maak 'n plan, we find a way and we move on and get it solved.
There might be really practical, very good changes that are happening behind the scenes. But at the perception level, we may not be getting that. Omri, what's your take?
Yeah, we need to, I mean, we had a discussion last year about it as well. The perception is changing, and we are working really hard to change that perception. We're going to launch a campaign now where we have a big perception change kind of messaging that's going out. You must also remember that agriculture is a whole value chain, from the primary producer right to the guy that sells at Checkers a piece of meat. So there's a whole lot of businesses in between. So if someone studies agriculture or is interested in agriculture, it's a very dynamic and a very, I think, interesting industry to be in. There's a whole host of things that you can do within that value chain. But I think knowledge, skills and experience are the things that are really important in getting people involved in that value chain.
Yeah, Prudence, maybe from an HR background, you know of all the skill sets required and all the different careers required that you can pursue in agriculture. Would you take us through to some of the exciting?
I think firstly, maybe just to talk about the perception. Yes, it's correct. but I think it's definitely changed. So for an example, I'm in agriculture, and you would never expect that there would be a young black female in the agricultural sector. And what has become key over the years for me is that one needs to have a mind shift. And I think what's more important is that we need to focus on the youth being that perception that we need to change. They must be the drivers of changing the face of agriculture. So just to add on to what Yannis has said in terms of technology. So traditionally, agriculture has done very well, even with the perception of a white boer with, in this specific place, brown socks and whatnot. But if you look at agriculture now, with technology in mind and creative, innovative ways, those are being driven by young people. So you now find tractors that are technologically driven, that can plow and harvest a whole hectare of a farm, which is all being driven by young people. So I think the mind shift is key for me in attracting these young people into the industry. So the different careers that we have in agriculture, so one of them is HR, because for a farmer to be successful out there, or for a business to enable that support to a farmer, you would need your supporting function being either finance, being marketing, and then you also go into the background where you have your IT specialists, you look at your lab analysts that are going to make sure that the farmer plants the right seeds in the right soils with the right agronomists to make sure that they get the greatest harvest out of their, their soils. So really the careers are endless. If young people can get out of the perception that agriculture is only for a specific sector or diverse culture, then we've got a problem.
Maybe to put the question differently and become at least more personal now.
Yes.
When did you join the sector and how old were you?
I joined AFGRI specifically 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And for me, what I was attracted to is that I wanted to be part of a bigger picture in terms of the food space. Mm-hmm. So what was critical for me is that I don't think there ever will be a day where one will stop eating. Mm. And what was my key driver was, if you look at other countries, such as Somalia, in the African countries, they're going hungry because firstly, they either don't have the skills to optimize their land, or they just don't have the opportunity, or the mind shift is the problem. So the solutions is in those industries is always US aids from other international countries. But if you think about it, and anybody can challenge me on this one, but I really believe that in South Africa, we hold the key to food security. We've got fertile soil, we've got wealth of information and knowledge from our traditional farmers. And so what's key is that we need to now work on transferring those skills from our traditional farmers to youth. So if I think of a corporate environment which I'm within, but in the agricultural space, what is important to me is to start getting the commercial farmers on board, rather than having a student that wants to become either a farmer or IT technologist or lab analyst or business strategist. We need to partner those people with experts.
We'll come to the assistance that we can offer to young people. I want to come to Flint. Flint, when did you join this space? When did you join Senvest, and how old were you?
I'm actually been only a year at Senvest. Yeah. And I'm 27 now. So after the studies, I did my articles and then I joined Senvest. So it's only been a year now, yeah.
All right. And what did you study?
Chartered accountancy, yeah.
Chartered accountancy. So agriculture can actually be cool and get accountants as well.
Yeah, agriculture is actually very cool. The good thing about agricultural businesses, it's not co-ops like in the old days. Now it's commercial corporate companies. Yeah. And it's very a very challenging environment in the sense that you've got different industries actually, like Omri touched on the value chain. You've got different industries and in one company. If I may use Senvest as an example, we have retail, we have logistics, storage and handling, financial services and insurance. And then you've got the corporate functions like finance, legal. So it's all of these businesses that needs to be integrated into one business and to work as a group. So for young professional people that want to be in a challenging environment and that wants to grow their skills, The agricultural companies is a great way to start. Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, back to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're saying the old guard should vacate. They could be of great assistance to the young entrants in this agricultural space.
Yeah, I think agriculture is very rich in that sort of tradition where the old guard helps the new guys. I mean, there's so many stories about family farming, and the fact that they're sustainable is because the skills have been transferred over the generations. But now with this transformation that the country is in general, you know, Grain South Africa, as we sit here today, we're employing 90 mentors. That's mostly commercial white farmers helping black farmers to become commercial farmers.
Yeah.
So this is the transition period that we are in. If we look at the database of black farmers, for instance, in South Africa today, we've just asked the computer to give us, there's about 10,000 of them in the database. What percentage of them are younger than 35? Now, I don't know why I picked 35, but that was a round number. It is 15%. So there's already a group of youngsters coming through. And when we talk to them at grassroots level, we are getting an excitement also from them. But I think the point that Prudence was making about the food security, the bigger picture, we want to make sure we're sustainable in terms of, you know, looking after the planet, and the practices that we're using are sustainable in that way. But it is actually a very nice thing that you might not necessarily find in other countries. This, you know, one generation helping another one to move on. Not just over race, but also over the generation gap.
I like the fact that you speak about mining data from your computer and analyzing it and packaging it, and you know, so clearly in all of that process, you have to have statisticians, you have to have IT people in this agricultural space.
Mpumelelo, my hair might be white, but it's because I've got many miles on. I'm not that old. But so what we've got, we GPS coordinate every single piece of land, even if it's a 1 hectare farmer.
Yeah.
There's a soil sample being taken. It's all in the database. When last did this farmer attend the Farmers' Day? Which study courses he's done with Grain South Africa or whoever else? What was his yield last year? To whom did he sell? So that we can, you know, when a financier get there, you can say, listen, this is the profile of the guy. You can actually help him to get input suppliers and financiers to get the process going, because we need this transformation to happen.
Yeah, and when we mention GIS, which is the geographical information, it reminds me of geography. So you can actually study geography and have a career in agriculture. It somewhere it fits in there. So you actually can do a lot in that space.
Yeah, and I think in the past, where, you know, in the regulated era, government made the rules and the prices and all of that. Now you need these type of financial guys, because you want to hedge.
Yeah.
You know, this is pure financial stuff, but it is agricultural products.
Yeah.
It is never going to be like coal the same tomorrow, because it's raining this year, you know, it's not raining, you know, the prices go up and down. There's a problem in America, or there's something happening in Japan, you know, it is just a fantastic dynamic area. It is never the same. Every season is different.
Yeah. Omri, but I'm sure there should also be a sense of guilt, if not a bit of embarrassment from the young people, if they have to be fed by old people. Why can't they produce their own food?
Look, you know, I don't know if people care what color the cat is, as long as it catches the mouse. So, no, just latching on to what Yanni just said, you know, we've got 25 commodity organizations in Agri-SA. And that ranges from aquaculture, guys that breed abalone and mussels and clams and all kinds of stuff, right through to grain farmers. And in between, you've got grape farmers and sugar farmers, and if you can eat it or drink it, it's there.
Yeah.
So it's such a dynamic environment, and all of these have sophisticated businesses within themselves. And a lot of them have export markets, and so it's actually a very diverse kind of business. So a lot happens actually from the farmer to when you, because people seem to think that Woolworths, you know.
But are there opportunities for young people in this economic environment?
The agriculture is the growth node for the South African economy. It is where it's happening. And you can see a place like this. This is the boiling pot of the future of South Africa's economy, and also of Africa's economy. Because what Prudence was saying earlier, you must remember that food security-wise, we are the only continent in the world that can actually develop to the extent that we can feed the rest of this continent and the rest of the world. And within this, South Africa is sitting with the skill and the knowledge and the technology and the financial systems. So it's a massive opportunity for us to firstly get our agriculture economy up, get a more inclusive growth story, get property rights sorted out so that people can own the land, and then use that base to expand into other countries. And a lot of companies in South Africa, Monsanto and Syngenta and DuPont, they all want to expand into Africa, but the skills base is lacking. So I see us as the future hub of technology growth and opportunity for Africa here in South Africa.
And Prudence, who's supposed to do this training to make sure that the skills are available in abundance?
You know, as associates and organizations sitting right now and talking about this, it's our responsibility. So it's also the responsibility of the youth. So, you know, what is critical within the agricultural sector is, it was mentioned in a discussion during the week as well, that if you don't have passion for it and you are out to just get money, then you've got a problem. You know, the agricultural sector, for you to be successful and really contribute to food security in Africa, like Omri is saying, is you need to be selfless. It needs to be not just about you, but about the current generation and the future generation. If we don't do something about it now, as key contributors, then we would have failed drastically.
I know you can't teach passion, but somehow we have to do something in our society that allows passion to develop, create an environment where people can be passionate about agriculture. How are we doing in that regard?
We are running a schools program now, I think, for about 8 to 10 years, where we try to influence the grade 9 kids just before they make their final decisions, you know, about their subjects going into matric, and say, these are the careers in agriculture. This is how a farm works. Where does money come from? And what is all in your hamburger and your T-shirt? You know, those sort of things. And that is just to try and help the kids to understand what is it that you know, taking decisions going forward. We've got a grain academy for young farmer leaders and people in agriculture sector to develop their leadership skills, because we know tomorrow they're going to have to make the decisions. And you know, in the old days when I grew
That academy is run by Grain SA, right?
That's Grain SA and Syngenta with some business schools. You know, when I grew up, I was sitting as a youngster in the wheat board and the maize board, and there was all these old worms, and they were, you know, it sounds like they know everything there. And I've learned from them. But the new generation hasn't got that sort of incubator where you can actually start rubbing shoulders. So we need to create things where the next generation start learning each other. We take government officials there so that they don't find each other for the first time doing land reform negotiations when they like at 55. They need to start talking about these things, resolving labor issues and, you know, safety on the farms or whatever, when they're 35 and younger. So these are the platforms that we create to take this specifically forward, and that the next generation start thinking about the difficult issues, because we need some new solutions. You know, the old guard can't find new solutions to their old problems. We need some people thinking differently on these things. So we're trying to create some platforms where they can talk.
But there's also the issue that, notwithstanding all the career opportunities available in the sector, people would still want to see young people at the farm, right at the farm, wearing the khaki shorts, young as they are, producing the food.
You'll see there's a lot of young people that are entering the sector, and we see that everywhere. I mean, you know, in Agri-SA we've got a lot of farmers members. Worldwide, the average age of a farmer is around 57. In South Africa, it's more or less the same. So it's not just in South Africa where that's a challenge, but also internationally. So as a sector, so there's two things. There's a push and a pull. Okay, so the colleges generate students in South Africa that is supposed to enter the value chain. We have challenges within the college systems. It's not working optimally. And this is the feeding ground, or the feeding hub of the youth. Okay, and then that youth gets sucked into the different agriculture companies, into farming opportunities, etc. And you'll find that the sector itself is really, really keen on transformation and really keen on inclusive growth, because we're pretty much a doorway to the South African economy, and the rest of our continent actually. And for us, we want to be an example of how we will lead in that space.
Yeah.
So we're very, very keen to actually engage and grow inclusively and so on. We need to create the opportunities, and they are there. I mean, like us, we run internships and we get really excellent candidates, and make sure that we pull them through.
And Prudence, from your experience managing people who have just come through school, what do you think are the things they need to take care of before they get fully absorbed in the thing? Do you find them well prepared, or do you always have to do some smoothing?
There's a lot of smoothing that needs to happen. And I think, we've touched a bit on the technical colleges that has failed us drastically. But I think there's still hope within our organizations. So specifically at AFGRI, if I speak of the 3 main companies that we have that deal directly with the farmers. So we've got an organization called Harvest Time, where we attract learnerships or community members that would like to partake in the farming space. And so we operate from a small-scale farmer perspective as well as your large-scale farmer perspective. Once we've taken them through these learnerships, they then become mentors to obviously upcoming other young farmers that would like to operate within the space. And we counter that by having an organization called Grain Management, where we also have technical learnerships in the form of grain management and production, where these guys operate within our silos. So one key thing, which I would like to just include as well in our equipment company, where we have a lot of apprenticeships that we partake in on an annual basis and actually absorb at least 100% of the technicians that we get on site, is that I've realized that from an HR perspective, you need to get an expert to be followed by a person that's interested in a specific sector. So if I speak of, I'll go back to farming. You cannot get a mentor sitting in a corporate office mentoring somebody that wants to become a farmer. It's just not going to work. So because we are focused on young people, if that young person needs to become a farmer, it needs to be a full-time job.
But those students that you receive, how much of their schooling involves a bit of work on the farm? Do you get a sense that they have an idea of what happens on the farm?
Not at all. And I think that is why I believe that what we are doing will help us in future. So they come on board, and what they have studied at school is just on paper. It's theory that they have no ability to apply.
So
in
your
the
job
actual
is to offer
environment.
the opportunity to bridge the gap.
So we have bridged that gap in offering those platforms, and we really do see it working and working successfully. And if more organizations can get into that space, then we're definitely heading into the right direction.
Flint, you knew at Sandvest, and the nice thing about arriving at the new employment place is that you make a lot of observations which other people who have been there for a while might not have made. So your observations are sharper and still fresh. What's your perspective of young people in that environment?
Young people want to be challenged every day. They want to be challenged. It's not always about salary. People think it's always about salary, but it's about salary. It's about work experience is very important. So they want to be challenged every day. They want to see new markets. They want to go into new places and grow businesses. They want to learn new skills. They want to develop new thoughts. The young people like thought leadership. So it's an important thing that where they go, they see the opportunities and they take it and let other people follow. So I think there's always opportunities, and there's a culture of excellence as well. So when you are keen, you have to have the right attitude towards learning and towards growing. When you don't have the right attitude, you're not going to grow. But when you have the right attitude, there's more than enough space to grow.
So in other words, there shouldn't be no expectations of quick fix or quick buck.
No, there's no. It's a difficult industry. The world is very competitive. The businesses are very competitive. Because the world it's been globalized, it's been consolidated, markets have been consolidated. You need economies of scale, you need knowledge, you need that skills. So you're not going to learn everything in 1 year or 2 years, 3 years. That's why CEOs isn't guys that have been in the industry for a year or two. You need proper experience because it can become complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, Jan, you want to comment about the attitude issue? Yeah.
What I love to do is, sometimes I have to travel to Farmers' Days or something, and then I take these youngsters into the car and say, "Klim in." Now we're going to drive to Matatiel. It's like 6 or 8 hours, and we sit in the car and we talk about life, not just farming, but life. And we experience a lot of things, and I share what I've got. Whether, we sometimes have to come from Pretoria to Nampo Park, get somebody in the car, talk about things, help them to understand where are we, what is going to happen next in his life. And this is what our generation have to do. And this is always part of the development of these youngsters, like Prudence say. If they get there, they've learned a few technical things, but I mean, we've also been there, as long as your character is sound, you can learn almost anything. But people need to take that responsibility to get them into the car and do the hard yards with them.
But there's also this issue of the rural city divide, where our young people increasingly want to be in the city. They want to be on TV. They want to be celebrities. I can tell you, I've had experience when I was a station manager on a radio station where I would get CVs, including people who have studied agriculture, who say, well, I've finished my degree now. I'm not interested in this. I want to be on radio. I want to be on TV. Help me to appear on TV. Flint, how do we respond to that?
Well,
on TV.
Well, firstly, I think that you have to find yourself a purpose. If your purpose is only to come on TV and to appear on TV and be famous or let people know your name, you're going to get hurt somewhere. You have to, if you want to become famous, you have to become famous for the right reasons. You first have to grow and be the person that you have to become the person that you were created to be. Then you can go to the next step, into what direction you have to go, whatever. But this desire to appear on TV, that doesn't mean anything.
Maybe we have to develop some agricultural celebrities here.
Look, I wanted to be James Bond, but that didn't work out. I think from where we sit, talking to the youth here, the first thing is it's hard work. Okay, you have to work hard. I mean, you don't, roll over and get a bakkie and off you drive into the sunset. The first thing is it's very, very hard work. The second thing is you need to be connected with technology. Today, you can become so connected. I've got guys applying for jobs from South America, North America, Nigeria, everywhere, because they are connected and they read and they're informed. And I think the third thing is, money is always an obstacle in terms of studies and development and so on. It's important to latch on to and be proactive. If you go to America, the students and the kids are so assertive. They're so keen and they're so hungry and ambitious to kind of change the world that, they really go out of their way to make it happen. It's almost like, and they sell themselves and they get to know the industry. They get to know the players in the industry. And I think as a little bit of word of advice, that's a very important thing to do, is to use all of these things and to better yourself. You have to grow yourself. And like Flynn said, agriculture is not, it's a cause-driven thing, right? You love the land, you love food security, you love people, and that's what that business is about. And if you're serious about it, it doesn't matter, from what culture denomination you come from. Food security in this world is going to be an issue for the next 100 years. This is a great career opportunity, but you're going to have to work very hard and understand what goes on in there.
Yeah, and Prudence, you and I once spoke about this issue of people's attitude and their assertiveness, and how important is that?
I think it's very important, Mpumelelo. You know, what's critical, especially with the youth of today, is that they are not as grounded as, you know, our UMPs were back in the days. And, you know, we hold really a critical responsibility to transform the thinking of the youth. And, you know, I know we keep talking about transformation, but I think it needs to
not
start...
because they've got too many options now?
That is true. But options with no full thought through is a problem. Because firstly, there are many options, whether be it in agriculture or outside of agriculture. But if you have not thought thoroughly about what your direction should be, and thought about it not only from a money perspective, but from a contribution point of view. So our current youth will one day become parents. They will one day get to sit where we're sitting today to try and speak to youth at that stage in terms of what would have failed, what would have been successful, what we need to continue doing, or what we need to stop doing. And so the transformation that I'm trying to talk about is if we don't ground our youth now, we're not going to get it right. And how then can we ensure that grounding or transforming the thoughts of these youth is that we need to start going out there more. You know, other sectors, I think, really make the time because of technology. It's easy for them to reach out to the students. So think of Flint's industry, the accounting industry. I think everything is so digitalized. We are getting there in terms of the agricultural industry, but the career expos needs to become more from the agricultural perspective. You know, I was speaking to Yanni that youth need to start attending agricultural expos more often. They will then get really a true picture of what the agricultural sector has to offer.
But let me come to the incentive part here, because, you know, it's easy to sound like we're preaching because we know the right thing and all of that. And I can tell you a little bit about my story. When I was doing journalism at Stellenbosch, and one of my funders, the big company, Naspers, one of the executives came to address us. And then we had a Q&A, so I asked the question, how much do journalists earn? Because I was interested how much I was going to earn. And then he says, well, I'm not going to tell you that. All I know is that journalists are very happy when they see their name in the newspaper. And he says, if you are not incentivized by that, then you're not going to be a good journalist. So what's an incentive for a young man or a young woman who wants to enter agriculture? My incentive was my name would appear there. What's their incentive?
When I had to make my decision in terms of my career, the thing that incentivized me is I'm going to be busy with significant stuff. I'm not here for the money.
Yeah.
And I understand margins in agriculture is not the same as in the IT industry and maybe in the mining or whatever. But I'm going to change people's lives by make sure there's enough food in this country and we can help the continent with what we're doing here to feed people. And at the moment, we're changing even household by 1 hectare at a time. Getting a commercial yield on 1 hectare is changing people's lives. And this is significant to me. And this is what that made me make the decision. I didn't thought one day I'm going to be famous or sitting on the TV or in the newspaper or something.
Yeah.
If I can change that, mama sitting there and feeding her children tonight, and I can make it easier for you to do it, then I've done my thing.
Omri?
Same story. I'm actually a lawyer. They say talk is cheap until you hire a lawyer. But so I mean, growing up near Mpumelelo on a farm, and I got my passion from there. And then I went into Deloitte, so I was in a very hardcore, you know, consulting financial environment where I started a business called the Deloitte Africa Agribusiness Unit. And what I eventually did is I resigned and I just focused on agriculture, and I made sure, and that's why I'm saying, you have to understand who the players are, you have to make the connections, you have to do the research, you have to understand how the whole system works. And once you have that kind of knowledge and that kind of contacts, you can actually develop yourself from there. So you can be an accountant or an HR person or a lawyer or an economist, but agriculture is such a broad and diverse environment that you will do something that you feel passionate about. I mean, if you talk to the guys that breed mussels, I mean, you must listen to those folks talk about mussels, you know. It's like, really? They get them from Namibia. And, you know. So it is something that is so diverse and so exciting. And that's what stimulates me. I was saying to Janso, my colleague there, I was saying, this is such a stimulating business to be. My head spins every day. I'm like, it's an amazing place to be.
Yeah. But we can't avoid the fact that there are obviously challenges. I'm reading here a report from the International Movement of Catholic Agricultural and Rural Youth. It's basically, they put together, it's a group of NGOs. They put together a report that shows that the youth have difficulties in entering the sector because of limited knowledge, limited access to policy making. They can't influence policy, limited access to finance, and limited access to the market. So these are the challenges that have been cited elsewhere as one of some of the obstacles that prevent young people from entering. How do we resolve those, Yanni?
If we can change the image of agriculture, that it's not that image or perception that you started off with this discussion, I think then it will become easier for them to understand that there are more options. If I'm an IT specialist today, if I look at the future of data science in agriculture, how do we mine all this data that this computer is sending back to the farmhouse or to your study there? You know, what is the tonnages that it harvested per meter or per whatever, you know, and then to take that and change that into a new plan for your next production season or something like that. That ability, then you can say, all right, somebody who's got that skill can actually come into agriculture. But we need to make sure that people understand that agriculture, you know, I was talking to the farmers and say, you know, you need to have somebody with very good soft skills talking to all the compliant officers coming to your farm to check your labor records, to check, you know, every single compliancy thing that you have to do. Because the farmers are getting bigger, becoming businesses. You know, there's lots of risk that you have to do. The farmer can't be, you know, the specialist in all these fields. So you need people that can help you. And if we look at some of the bigger mega farmers, you know, employing 600 permanent people, and not even talking about the seasonal ones, you know, there's so many things that you can. But
do
not just farming.
Do you at Grain SA allow young people to experiment, to be adventurous, to play around and test ideas?
You can ask them. They're sitting here in the audience. Let them tell you whether we give them a chance to do something like that. I hope that we can do that, to give them that chance. To, you know, the people who's running this business, the guy in charge of that, I think he's 38. This is his first time he's doing it. You know, so and I'm standing back. And sometimes you take a deep breath and everything is going to go smart. There's like, you know, 75,000 people here on the farm, and you hope everything is going well. But you need to give them that opportunity. Somebody gave it to me when I was like 35. You know, and I always appreciated that. So I've learned something back there. Now I have to say, all right, you know, just stand a little back. Sometimes take a bit of a challenge, but give them an opportunity to go.
I think one of the key things in primary agriculture, one of the key challenges that we need to overcome is the whole property rights thing. The issue with that is, in South Africa and worldwide, farmers are funded by the banks. Okay, so if you don't own the farm, you cannot collateralize it, so you cannot go and lend money from the bank. And I think for new entrants, young guys that actually want to farm, that's a key challenge that we want to overcome. Because without that, the mechanism is problematic. You cannot really become a farmer if you don't own the land and can go and borrow money. So that's one of the things that we are working on quite hard. And that's also a game changer in terms of the rural economy and how it trades and so on.
But what's the way forward, guys? I mean, I learned recently that there's a group in America, a hip-hop group, that has been composing songs and making videos on the farm, trying to encourage young people to farm. What should we do? Should we compose songs? What should we do to get not just the perception right, but to also get to improve on what we are already doing right, to get young people to be involved? Flint?
Well, I think Omri already touched on it, and education is very important. At school, you don't learn the significance of agriculture. So you learn about economics, and you touch on different kinds of businesses. But the thing about agriculture is it's very interdependent. And when agriculture grows, other industries can grow with it. So at school level, people can learn to understand that agriculture plays a very important role in the economy, and that it can even grow bigger and bigger. So I think education is a very important tool.
Yeah, Prudence?
I think, you know, what we need to start focusing on is having more of such platforms like we do right now. And because this is going to open up the minds of the youth to understand that it's not only a farmer that exists within the agricultural sector, but there are other career opportunities that support this farmer to be successful. Not everybody is passionate about being a farmer. I'm passionate about being a farmer, but I'm not going to be one because it just takes a lot to be in that industry. But also, I just want to go back to having the passion as well. So one might have passion for the agricultural sector, but obviously have those challenges that you have mentioned. And what we need to be communicating in such platforms is that the youth need to start broadening their minds.
But what can you do maybe to get young people to be in government and then be the advocates of agriculture in government? Because there's a policy question that I've mentioned earlier where young people don't feel like they have access to policy making. Should we get young people to be politicians?
Not really, not really. Mpumelelo, what I've realized is that young people don't read as much as the older generation did. And so in many cases, when a policy is out there for public comment, you will not find one young person that will tell you about that policy development. But if we are really transparent about it, from a government perspective and from organizations as well, in raising those challenges or agendas on platforms that are more accessible to the youth. So your Facebooks of this world, your Twitters of this world, your Nation in Conversations, you know, I think they would be in a better position to comment on those policies.
The foodies are actually helping us as well. You know, I don't watch all those television programs necessarily, but to learn where your food is coming from is actually pulling the consumer, you know, thinking about the traceability. Where is this meat coming from, or this little whatever the case is. I think that has actually helped us more than we thought. It wasn't something that we've created as agriculture sector, but it is just sort of trying to, you know, shorten the link between the farm and the plate. That for me was one of the trends that I thought, and I mean, if you look at the foodies, it's more the younger generation. So that was just one thought. You know, the songs will also help a bit. You know, they love the music. But the thing that I've learned in my life is it must come from, you know, the DG was saying agriculture comes from deep down here. You know, it mustn't be in your heart. One of our breeders, top breeders in the country in the wheat breeding, was saying the other day, it is hard work, like Omri said, to walk at 42 degrees at Modderrivier and looking at all your trials in December. You know, that's not everybody's thing. But if it is deep down here, you do it because you know you can, you know, get another ton per hectare. It's going to make you sustainable. It's going to feed the nation. This is my part that I'm contributing.
Omri, you have a pending point.
Yeah. Agri-SA has launched a movement. We call it a movement, okay, that we call our Transformation Hub. So Christy's running that hub, and we've had our first conversation when there were so many people we couldn't fit everybody into the room. So we're running these conversations now. We have one with Grain SA and one with Vinpro, the wine guys, and one with the game industry. So that's actually where we bring together all these mechanics and all the different points of view. And we actually have a discussion and get some action items out of that. So there's a movement that's happening that you will all be invited to, and that is one of the raising the awareness platforms that you were talking about, Prudence, that I think is going to have a big impact.
Well, just one last point. You mentioned earlier about you made some international comparisons. You know, one of the importance of having the youth involved is that our agricultural sector can only be competitive in the long run if our youth is also competitive relative to other youth in other countries. Do we think about that aspect?
You see, it's a very interesting point, because if you look at, we're a member of the World Farmers Organization, and then, you know, we get around a lot and speak to different people, and, you know, in a place like Japan, as an example, they go to school 6 days a week. Those kids study like it's nobody's business. They are hyper-specialized in everything, even when they leave school. So that's the kind of tech we need to compete against internationally. So as Africans and South Africans, we are really one of the top countries in the world in agriculture.
Yeah.
But we need to lift the bar in terms of our international competitiveness. Because the world is becoming more and more competitive, more sophisticated, smarter, and we need to be able to throw the same punches that they can.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear from the guys here what they will do to make sure that they produce their own food. They don't depend on old people, and they don't depend on foreigners to feed them. So in other words, we don't have to import all our food. So we will open up now the platform for you guys to ask questions or to comment. We will have a roving mic. And please, these are our top experts in the country. Don't leave them with a question mark in your head unanswered. Let's get all the questions answered. And also give them food for thought if you have some thoughts about where they can improve to make it easy for you to access information, to access knowledge, to access capital, or even to think ahead about your career plans. So let's open up. Who's first up? The two gentlemen at the back. Oh, there. Okay.
Yes, good day.
Please introduce yourself, where you come from, who you are, and then ask your question.
Okay, good day. My name is Mkabela. I'm from Mpumelelo at Morganzone. So I'm a graduate or a student of Harvest Time from Africa. So I'm not having a question, but I wanted just to comment on a few things that has been said there, like the challenges. One of the challenges that I feel is not being mentioned is the availability of land for young farmers or for youngsters to partake or to participate in farming. And the other thing that I think we need to do, we need to try to change this thing, perception that farming was something like an oppressing labor or hard labor. Because now we can find that those farmers or farm workers, they can just operate in a smart way, where we find that they are using these computerized systems as well. And also, if we check, the other thing that I think we need to do to encourage young people, we must stop this perception that during the youth months, we are just talking about the politics and all that things. But we must start to make some youth events like agricultural awareness for the youth, just to encourage them, to show them which chances are available. And also, we need to make sure that this thing of mentorship, we get the correct people. Because what we have experienced is just that in some areas we find that the youth is just in farming, but they don't get the correct information or they're not well being trained. So for me, if I was the guy to decide, I was going to say, firstly, you must go for a training, and then you are being financially supported. We can't just be given money whereas we are not being taught how to be sustainable. But also, I was going to say, we need to try and say to our government, they should support programs that are being run by you guys like Harvest Time, Africa, Grain SA, that they can empower and transfer the skills to the young people, so that at the end we can make sure that the farming industry, it can stay for long, or we are having the sustainable product at the end. Thank you.
Thanks for the lovely input. I mean, that's very important points. The part about agriculture being an oppressive working environment, it's valid because there's a historical thing about oppressive labor systems, slavery. A lot of this horrible stuff were done through the agriculture. So how do we get that out?
We have to get out of it. I think we have to work hard and get the factual situation, not just sort of pictures that shows that we are busy changing. But I think the stuff is we need to fix ourselves as far as agriculture sector is concerned. We've got this problem. The land issue, I agree with him. This is a very difficult part. How do we, there's only limited land. Where do we get land for people who wants to start up first? And the difficult thing about agriculture is highly, in any case, Mpumelelo is a big grain producing area, a lot of livestock. It is so difficult to start from zero. It is almost impossible. And I think this is why the family thing is doing a lot better. But we need to start helping and looking at what is it that we can and can't do. But at the moment, there's no tools and no quick solutions to that specific problem. But I agree, the whole hard physical labor thing is busy changing because of all the computerized stuff, and you're going to talk to the guys from some of the equipment people later on in the program.
Yeah.
They will tell you, you need a smart guy. This thing costs 6 million rand. You know, you can't put somebody on there that can't read and write and those sort of things.
Any takers?
I think what is becoming evident, and I think I've discussed it with my colleagues as well, is that, you know, in shifting this perception, we need clear collaboration with the farmers. So what I've said prior is that they hold the wealth of information. So one other evident thing is that because the technical colleges have failed so much, I think we need to start asking ourselves a key question. Could they be the solution to upskilling from an academic point of view? Because what the technical colleges are failing to do is that they also don't understand the market as fully as a farmer who has been farming for years understands the market. So we can capitalize that from a corporate point of view, like the student has been saying now, that at harvest time, we have a couple of farms where we host our learners. A farmer on that farm is our key contributor in terms of transferring skills to this person. Should we not be speaking to the agri-seaters of this world to divert funds to the right people? Should those funds rather not be going partially to the farmer and the learner instead of a technical college that is failing?
Yeah.
You see, one of the things that Yanni and I often discuss, if you have a magic wand, right? We privatize all the agricultural colleges. We take that $500 million that they spend on them every year. You know, interestingly enough, Christy's visited some of these. There's some of these colleges where the teacher to student ratio is 1-to-1. So you have as many students as you have lecturers.
In South Africa?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So privatize these technical colleges, identify land that the best students can actually get through a funding mechanism, right? Because you're going to have to change the funding mechanism, otherwise they won't be able to. So if we had a magic wand, that's what we wanted to do, and maybe we will still do it.
Yeah, I like his suggestion, though, about the political rallies on Youth Month on June 16. I mean, if we want to transform the economy, as it's made to be the main goal at the moment, the second aspect of our transition, surely political slogans sometimes should be merged with some kind of entrepreneurial slogans, eh?
Yeah.
Can I just say, over the past 5 years that we're having this nation in conversation, for me, the biggest change is we are moving away from being reactive on everything that government is saying to find our own solutions.
Yes.
And this, for me, is fantastic.
Wonderful. I hope you will also join the policy activism environment and try and agitate for policy changes. Any question? There was a question at the back.
I'm Benisa Hartman from Agri-Colleges International. Now, we're a new kid on the block. We we started being a private organization and a private college. But we're going to do it online. Plus, we are going to use the farmers around us. We initiated our start in Tsanin, and it comes from private farmers, because we saw that we don't find that the learners or students coming from these agri-colleges or the FET colleges are actually enough skilled to work on farms. So that is already a start from the private initiative or the private sector, and we are opening our college next year, and we are going to use farms and farmers around us. So as I've already distributed some of the pamphlets here so that the students can see that there is some initiative going on. Thank you.
I think that's a very brilliant contribution. I think it should be welcomed by the industry.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Can I have a business card?
I can only allow maybe the last two.
Right at the back.
Right at the back, somebody had been...
Morning. My name is K.R. Letsapa. I am from Klerksdorp, representing Vuselela FET College. I am a lecturer in primary agriculture plant production. I have students here. Most of the time we discuss this, what your panelists already touched on. But there is a very serious challenge within this sector, more especially in young generation. There was a time whereby my granddad told me that, you know what, if you want to see a change, you must be the change. So I always encourage my students that you must get dirty in order to have success. If you are looking for a success, then be dirty, then you can think of the success later. So I'm taking a challenge to all your panel, Pumlane, to come to our college, to look what they can put in table for our students, because I believe I've got a very capable student, and I believe in other institutions they do so. So I'm taking this challenge, more especially because I'll upload first, Sandvest, because they've been on our company since 2015, I can say. So I want other companies to be, and I'm pleading to them that if they can visit our institutions and see what they can offer, then it will be, I will be a happy person. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good challenge for you guys. I want to, can I discriminate here? I want a question from one young woman. A student.
There's one.
Yeah, please.
There at the back left.
Good morning. My name is Lebohang Buthelezi, and I'm from the Northwest University Mafikeng campus. My question is, from what the panel has been saying, agriculture, especially when you want to go into commercial farming, it needs experience and skills. So now that becomes easier for individuals who grew up in the farm, but not easier for people who grew up in urbanized areas to just get into the commercial sector and farm. So commercial sector in farming. So my question is, especially from the sir from Grain SA, what's the probability of us making it, especially if we don't have experience but have the education in farming, commercial farming? Because I've noticed that most of the time it becomes a failure as compared to those who have the experience and have been doing it from a young age until.
Good question. Yeah. I think it's for all of you.
Yeah, I think if I can start, thanks for the question. One, it is tough. If you're from outside, it is very tough. The second thing is what has happened with a lot of the current farmer generation is they have started working on the farm even as a manager or start gaining that experience, getting that exposure to catch up. I mean, obviously you're at the disadvantage of the kid who grew up there, who, drove in the bakkie every morning with his dad or whatever the case may be. But you have to step onto that farm somewhere and start gaining that type of experience. And what I've seen in the grain sector in any case, as the technology has changed, the type of people that we're employing is not the hand laborers anymore. There are those as well, but we are looking for graduates that can start, learning the trade and doing the things that is more to do with the head than with the hands. But we've got a saying that the best fertilizer in the grain business is getting dirt on your boots. You have to be in the field as well. But get to a farm, start learning there, and then tomorrow you will, when you've got enough experience, you will be able to make that jump and help your next generation, your kids to follow to get onto that.
Can I put a question differently? The same question. Is there a way in which those who come from the background that she has described perhaps are put in a different training program compared to those who perhaps had some experience because of family businesses?
It would have been lovely if our training facilities can have like a practical part where you have to do certain part of it on a commercial farm or wherever to start gaining some of that experience. I know that I don't know whether it is still currently the case. Yeah. But in previous generations there was this sort of thing from certain institutions that does that.
Also, we have mobile clinics through MASDT that actually drive around and provide training and so on. But I wanted to say the best way to actually get to know farming is to go and work on a farm. I mean, I did that myself as a student. I worked on a pig farm, on a grape farm, and I knew I didn't want to farm with pigs. because it's a dirty business. So, but right from the bottom to the top, I actually learned a lot through doing that. And even if you learn that it's something that you don't want to do, at least then you got your boots dirty. And it's not a theoretical discussion about, you know, I'm sitting there under the tree and my cattle is grazing and, you know, I'm a rich man. So, yeah.
Do you stagger your training to accommodate the historical difference?
Definitely, and I think I've already touched on it on saying the key is really that collaboration with farmers. So we've got two options. We can collaborate with those farmers for learners to be able to go and experience actual farming. But I think we also have a positive in that we're dealing with youth. What maybe these technologists out there that are very good in IT needs to start putting together visual videos of what actually happens in a farm, especially for those people that grew up in urban areas. So they need to understand where the seed comes from, why it would not yield, why it must yield, you know, sun, how the climate plays a bigger portion, you know, the shortage of natural resources. If we don't understand that perspective or put it out there for the youth to understand, then we will still have those challenges.
I want to give Flint the last word. How can we make agriculture cool?
It is cool, man.
Well, I think it's already cool. I don't think you have to make it cool. But I think there's so much disruption taking place in the world with the demographics, the urbanization. They say that by 2050, food production needs to increase by 70%.
Yeah.
But when you look at 2030, it has to increase by 35%. That's already a large figure. So when the youth accepts responsibility, it already becomes much cooler. Also, I think they should go and have a look at the technological advancement that agriculture has made. If you look at John Deere tractors and equipment and all that kind of stuff is very cool. But I think when they realize the role, the whole value chain from primary farmer, doesn't look like the farmer 20 years ago. Today, farmers have to be very skilled, almost like business people. So from primary farmer through the value chain to the food producer, to the trucks, to Woolies or Checkers or whatever, there's lots of opportunities there.
Yeah.
And if they study that value chain, they will find something.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for sharing with us. I think you guys have been a fantastic panel. I think they deserve a round of applause, guys. And that's it coming from us here at Nation in Conversation here at Bothaville, Nampo, Harvest Day. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time.
Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by AFGRI, Monsanto, Nedbank, Senbes, Engine, Grain SA, and John Deere.